Here we go, guys. Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. People are complaining about it. I'm curious about it. I want to hear conservatives complain about it because it's funny to me when conservatives have complain about stuff too much. Sometimes it's just like silly complaints. Let's see what we got here from Ben Shapiro.
Folks, it appears that Disney really is interested in taking all of its great...
Hold on.
Well, folks, it appears that Disney really is interested in taking all of its great old IP and absolutely destroying it. The latest example is their casting with regard to Snow White. They have now decided that apparently every redhead in the Disney universe will be recast as a racially diverse person. And this is how, for example, The Little Mermaid ended up as a person of color.
Oh, black girl. It is interesting, though, because I didn't really get it at first, but it seems like there are a lot of instances of, like, redheaded characters getting made black. You know, I don't know, maybe someone dyslexic is reading the script or something or the casting. I don't know, but it's so interesting. I wonder why that is. I truly do wonder why that is. But, okay.
It's something that somebody noticed. It's basically, if you're a redhead in Disney universe, then they'll recast you. But now they're recasting everyone. So they've cast...
Well, I mean, just fundamentally, like, who cares about recasting? I mean, it's updating with the times, whatever.
Snow White. Snow White is now going to be played by Rachel Zegler. Okay, now, Rachel Zegler, you may know, again, her name is Snow White. Now, you might consider that racist, but that's also the name of the actual fairy tale.
Yeah, I know. To be honest with you, I've never put that together. Like, she's name was Snow White because she needed to be white. I feel like that's just stupid. Like, we don't need to keep her white because his name is Snow White. Like, whatever. But also, Snow White wasn't a redhead, so why are they saying what? Snow White was fucking brunette as fuck. What are we talking about? Why are they saying Snow White's not? Wait, Snow White isn't a redhead, so why did we bring up the redhead stuff? It's not even relevant in this situation. Yeah, she was like, that's it. She was like,
And in the actual fairy tale, it says skin. I mean, this is from the original 1936 Snow White.
You know what else was going on in 1936, Ben? It's a good thing we changed, huh? Who cares if she's Snow White? Who cares if they make her like a person of color or whatever? Who cares? Black or Hispanic or whatever.
Skin as white as snow.
Who cares?
Right? That is literally...
That's what I'm talking about. Who cares?
That's why she has her name.
We gotta keep it. Oh, fuck.
So, I guess just to like screw with people, they're casting... Rachel Zegler is a very talented person.
Oh, that's all I need to hear. I don't know who Rachel Zegler is. One of my issues I have is sometimes I feel like they'll add diversity in a movie and then lazily not make the movie good. If they have a talented actress, who cares then? I don't care. If she's a talented actress, who cares? Who cares?
I'm just... it's weird casting, you might say. Right? Like, I don't understand. There's certain parts that are racially specific. I mean, very clearly so.
Like what? What is happening?
And they're not going to cast Tiana from the Frog Prince, the princess, whatever it is. They're not...
The Princess and the Frog, Ben? You couldn't get that one? Oh, come on. That's actually a banger. That movie's really good.
They're going to recast Tiana as a white lady.
No, the argument is to add more diversity into the movie. And, like, who cares? Like, okay. Like, that's fine. I really don't care. And, wait, this is her... Wait, Rachel Zegler? Bro. She's basically white. I'm not trying to be... I'm sure she's, like, Hispanic or something. But, like, whatever. Like, okay. It's not... I mean, I don't consider this really a recast. I don't care. Whatever. Who cares?
Going to. Even though you certainly could.
The only problem with The Princess and the Frog was one thing. Okay, I'm going to be real with you. It was the best friend. Okay? It was her. This was the problem. This is the only problem in the movie. And I'm going to explain to you why it's a problem. This bitch should be fat. And that's a fucking fact. She should have been fat. She was fat-coded. Her dad's fat. She has the attitude of a prissy fat woman. She could have been a BBW queen. But they, for some reason, made her skinny. It doesn't make sense. It just nothing. If you don't understand what I'm saying, you've never watched the movie. It makes no sense that she's not fat. I don't understand it. So, I don't get it. It makes no sense to me. That's the only issue. She didn't even have to be, like, really big. She just needed to be thicker. You know? Like, it doesn't make any sense. I don't know. You just watch the movie and you'll know what I mean. But she should have just been overweight. It would have been better. It would have made more sense to me. It's that's the problem. It's a problem. So,
but they're not going to, and we all know
she's fat coded. Yeah, shut up. It's true. You fucking know it. Okay.
Why? Of course. Well, Snow White is like maybe the only racially specific white princess because it's in the name.
What the fuck, Ben? Just stop.
And it's not like greatly evil if a person is cast as what the part is.
Bro, just stop.
It's very strange to me that if you cast Alexander Hamilton as a black person, that's totally fine. But if you cast Martin Luther King as a white person, that is totally unacceptable.
It's not really that weird. Who the fuck is who's Alexander? Who is casting Alexander Hamilton as a black? Like, did somebody cast him as a black guy? I'm confused. Nobody did that, so that's not happening. Okay. I mean, Martin Luther King, his blackness was intrinsic to him because he was a black advocate. Yeah, that's it.
Maybe you should cast people as like what the description of the part is. There are certain parts where the person is described as white, and that's okay.
We can just describe him as black.
Hey,
that's not. Or it's, I mean, the actress is white, basically. She's Hispanic, but like, who cares?
It's like the end of the world.
Okay.
So you have to be racially blind when it comes to a person who is cast for white physical descriptors, but you have to be racially diverse for everybody else. Is the way that this works.
Yeah. There's a lot of white people. It's just about representation. It's not really that big of a deal.
It's a weird take. It's definitely a weird take.
Where's the Alexander Hamilton been played as a black guy? I'm confused. Is this like a thing? You don't know the Alexander Hamilton play? No, I'm not. I'm a straight man. What a hot take. I feel like if it was in a play, that makes sense to me because it's just about like the good actress or actor. It has nothing to do with anything else. You know, who cares? Hamilton. Okay, that's just a musical with it's like, oh, we have a good actor or a good theater person, which by the way doesn't exist. Good theater person doesn't exist. So who cares about that? That's just about like who cares? Who cares at all? Just tell the guy to act white. You know, act white. Ah! Be scared of everything. You know, he was Hispanic. Who cares? What are better things to worry about, dude? Better things to worry about.
So, she is, I believe, Colombian American.
Okay.
Is Rachel Zegler.
Okay.
And
gotcha.
She is, her father is of Polish descent. Her mom is from Colombia.
Oh, so then she's white, right? She's Polish. That's white. We're good. Why is it that because somebody has non-white in them that they all automatically lose their whiteness? It sounds kind of racist to me, Ben. It sounds like you're being racist. She's half white. That makes her half white, not Hispanic. All right? Enough, guys. I understand that it comes from the one drop rule, which is like if you have one drop of anything outside of being white, then you're not white anymore. It's like a historically racist, but just change it. Hey, listen, if you're half black, half white, you're half black and half white. You're not just black. You know what I mean? Like, who cares? She's half white. She's got a little of that snow in her white. You know what I'm saying, dude? Who cares? Who gives? But who cares either way? Who cares?
Or her maternal grandmother came from Colombia in the 1960s. So in the new Snow White is what people in the Democratic Party would call brown, right? I mean, like,
I guess
because
you are.
People of color, they're brown people. Like,
you're calling her brown.
This is what they would call it.
Okay.
She would be categorized in the census as non-white, according to the Democratic Party, playing Snow White.
And the Republican Party as well, but okay.
Okay? That's not the weird part.
Okay.
That's not.
It's not
the
weird
weird
at all.
part is the dwarves. So you may have realized that Snow White and the Seven Dwarves has dwarves, right? Because, like, they're dwarves. And that's, like, what they are. And one of the most characteristic things about the dwarves in Snow White and the Seven Dwarves is that they are short because they are dwarves.
Yeah, I think I got that. I think I got that one.
Well, we have decided that this is very, very insulting. And so the Seven Dwarves, so it's 6 racially diverse tall people and 1 person who is a little person.
Okay, this is a little preposterous. So I understand the fundamental concept of the dwarf characters being some kind of a historical stereotype negative stereotype towards little people. I think dwarves and little people are also socially acceptable. So I understand that, right? I get it. But I think this is stupid. Because I feel like there's a way to write dwarf characters non-insultingly as your change instead of not making them short or not making them dwarves anymore. Does that make sense? It's like instead, like we have I understand that we have historical, like there's an issue with the way that we portrayed dwarves in their history that could be stereotypical and demeaning of little people, and so all you really have to do, in my opinion, instead of remove little person characters, just make them more respectable characters. So I think that they should have just, and that just takes away jobs from little people, right? So that's it. I mean, I think it's a silly change. So yeah,
is my understanding. All of this,
but I mean, whatever.
Yeah. So one of the dwarves is also a woman.
Okay, that I don't care about. But okay.
So that's that.
Like that would be a great thing. Make some of the dwarves women. Like that makes sense to me. But okay.
That's, again, makes for a very weird dynamic because, as you recall from the original Seven White and the Snow Dwarfs,
it's the original Seven White. Holy fuck, man! They're wearing all. What the hell?
Again, makes for a very weird dynamic because, as you recall from the original Seven White and the Snow Dwarfs,
the Seven White and the Snow Dwarfs is my favorite movie of all time, by the way.
And Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, as you recall from the original, they all live in one room together.
Sure.
So that's definitely weird.
Okay. I guess. Yeah. It's like the YMCA.
Let's talk about the fact that life issues still matter in the country.
Apparently not. This is what
Roe versus Wade is overturned, and still,
which is terrible.
Tens of thousands of babies are going to be snuffed out.
Well, they're not babies. They don't have personhood. They're fetuses.
This year, you can help stop all of that thanks to our friends over at Preborn's network of clinics. Preborn is the largest provider of free ultrasounds in the United States.
Yeah, I'm going to help do the opposite, and I'm going to go. I'm not going to do anything, frankly.
Most people think about poor air quality when you have a fire that makes...
Oh, another ad. Poor air quality. Save 10% off of your environmental declines. Whatever. Jesus, Ben. Most of this videos are some...
Drones. Promo code Ben. Apparently, this is all because...
There we go. That was a lot of ads, Ben. Jesus Christ. What's the PC term for people with small stature? It's, I think, either little person or dwarf.
Peter Dinklage, the guy from Game of Thrones,
at
one point was like, they're casting a racially diverse Snow White, but... You're still telling the story of Snow White and the Seven Dwarves. You're still making that effing backward story about seven dwarves living in a cave together. First of all, they're the heroes of the story, you'll recall.
Okay.
And then Disney said it was taking a different approach to avoid reinforcing stereotypes from the original. Why is that a stereotype? What if they're just dwarves in the story? I don't understand.
I'm going to be absolutely real with you. I can't find any like actual constructive complaints about why they're dwarves. Like, what's the issue with the representation of the dwarves? Historically, if one person said they wish that the houses were less accessible to taller people because they're short, which makes sense, I guess. It doesn't seem like they're... I mean, like, why not just add some respect to the role? Make some of the dwarves women, but make them still like dwarf actors, like little person actors. Like, I don't really see an issue in the retelling. Why? It just sounds like we're erasing the roles of little people. It sounds just like less opportunities for like actors and actresses that are, dwarf like little persons. It sounds like Peter Dinklage complained, but he's also in a position of privilege because he's a famous actor who's gotten different roles. So, and all from what I remember, most of them have been somewhat humiliating to little people, right? Like, I remember 2 roles: Game of Thrones, which he did an excellent job in, and there was a lot of respect for the role, but like he was mocked for being a little person. And the second role was in, like, what was it, Will Ferrell Elf, where he was mocked by Will Ferrell, but again, there was respect to the role, of course, because he was like successful. My point is like, what's the issue? Who cares? Just add respect to the role. That kind of just seems stupid to make them all not little people anymore. Maybe have more representation. Maybe because there are some people, like little people, who are in wheelchairs. Like, not like unironically, have people in a wheelchair. Like show more realistic versions of dwarves or little people in it. Give the characters more time to be a little bit like three-dimensional instead of like having one-dimensional characteristics. Like, hey, I'm grumpy, I'm sleepy, I'm farty. My wife is very farty in the morning. Maybe give them more personality, give a little bit more time on developing their characters out of respect instead of centralizing the whole story about around Snow White. You could still do that, of course, but like maybe give a little time to develop those characters, give them more depth. But instead, just make them taller and half of them black, and it's apparently the best way to be woke nowadays. I feel like this is kind of proof. And we already know Disney as an organization doesn't care about anything. I know that there are people in Disney that care, of course, but the machine doesn't care. And it sounds like they got criticism from Peter Dinklage, and he's a great actor, but he doesn't represent the entire little person community. And now they're just removing jobs from people. What's your in as a little person role wise? Like, there's like no roles for a little. Like, what are you supposed to do? At this point, I feel like the only roles that are for little people are ones that are specifically written for Peter Dinklage because he's such a good actor. So, I don't know. I think it would have been good to add respect because look at like historically, like a lot of different roles for little people have always been like very demeaning and dehumanizing. They used to pay like little people to like box each other before boxing matches just as like a joke before like the real match, and in like circus events and stuff. It's always been very dehumanizing. So why not make it so that there's more? So it just seems like they kind of fudged that a little bit. But okay, whatever. Fumbled it, I mean.
Like that, it's so strange that you would think that way.
Yeah.
I mean, truly, that's a strange thing. The heroes of the story are the dwarves in Snow White and the Seven Dwarves.
Are they? Maybe I haven't seen it in a while.
Prince isn't even useful in the story. Right? The prince arrives at the very end and kisses Snow White and wakes her up. He didn't do anything about the witch. It's the dwarves who do something about the witch. And
maybe make her fall in love with a dwarf or something. Make them all of them. They can have a polycule. They can all fuck each other. Make it real woke. Just say fucking make it woke as hell. She says fuck you, prince, and she starts getting banged. Like they all just start banging each other and shit. That would be that would be woke as fuck, dude.
Like, we can't have dwarves doing that. It has to be racially diverse tall people, including apparently. Let's see that picture again. I mean, I just have to describe this for folks who can't actually see the picture. So let me describe the members of the dwarf community in the new live-action Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. You have one guy who looks like a member of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs because he's actually, a little person.
He looks a little hipster, too.
And then you have...
It's funny if they were all dwarves, but they were dressed just like this guy, Ben would be complaining about how they're too woke and annoying.
Jack Dorsey wearing some sort of, like, Russian hair covering. Looks like a Portland homeless person.
See, I told you he would be making fun of all of them. If they were all little people, he'd be making fun of their outfits regardless.
And then you have a black female who came straight from the Brown campus. And then you have a black male.
What? The Brown campus? What the fuck does that mean? What?
Straight from the Brown campus.
What does that mean? Okay, I don't care. I don't even care.
And then you have a black male. Yeah. And then you have apparently a member of a very low rent biker gang.
That's true.
A dude with long hair and a beard. And I assume that he is grumpy. You'd have to assume because of his face.
Right.
And then Carrot Top. And then Gregory Hines.
You're losing me, dude.
This is my. I don't understand the casting. Apparently their goal is to just destroy whatever sense of believability the story has. Yes, it's a fairy tale. You can cast it however you want, but it's literally in the description. It is the most physically descriptive of all titles. Snow White and the Seven Dwarves.
Yeah, I don't care about the Snow White part. I feel like it doesn't matter. There's plenty of representation of white people in Hollywood. I literally don't give a shit. But it's the little person part that really gets me. It just seems kind of stupid and counterintuitive to the whole story.
So now apparently the title of this movie is Hispanic Person, 6 Large People, and a Little Person.
Sure.
Which seems like a different film to me. It seems like a different story. Hispanic person, 6 large people of racially diverse background, and a little person, sounds like a different story than Snow White and the Seven Dwarves.
Sure.
It's It truly is an astonishing
It's actually a her Hispanic person because they're a woman.
thing. And yeah, I'm. Okay, so
Was it a baby?
yeah, I'm.
This is a little baby sound. He made like a little baby sound there. That was silly. This Ben Shapiro crying like a baby. Okay.
Okay, so a few things. One,
Sure.
the live action cannibalization of actual IP is an amazing thing. Second, the destruction of actual good IP off of in favor of new crappy IP is something
Do you really think that Snow White was that good? It's kind of boring.
Disney's been doing for a while, and they're doing it with everything. They're doing it with everything. So they'll slap a warning sticker on Aladdin. They'll slap a warning sticker on Snow White. And then the thing that I actually want to show my kid is Aladdin or Snow White. That's the thing they're actually making money off of. And then
You show your kid the old version.
make these crappy live action versions. And they're like, that's what we really wish Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs were Hispanic lady, 6 racially diverse large people, and a little person. That's what we wish the story were.
Okay.
It's like casting Sleeping Beauty as an awake, ugly person. It's like the reverse of what this story is.
Okay.
By the way, I'm just going to point out here, Disney does this with apparently every piece of content now.
Sure.
I've already told my children who are big Star Wars fans, like original Star Wars fans.
Whoa, original. What a nerd.
The last 3 movies just don't exist because this is what Disney does now.
It's kind of based on that one, though. The 7th one wasn't bad. It was the 8th one that killed all the stories that was bad.
Kathleen Kennedy. What they do is they take all their good IP and they cannibalize it and destroy it in favor of crappy new IP that nobody cares about.
Well, it's a quick cash grab. That's what it really comes down to.
Meanwhile, they won't even sell the old IP. If they really didn't like Aladdin or Snow White, they really thought these things were racist, they could put that IP up on the sales block, or they could just take it down entirely from their platform. They won't do that because they understand that what we're actually subscribing to Disney Plus for, if you're still subscribing, is for the old IP.
Okay.
So just slow clap for all the morons in charge of marketing. Because again, you know what would have happened? What would have happened if, for example, they just cast a talented white lady as Snow White and 7 dwarves? You know what would have happened? Nothing. No one would have cared and would have made a lot of money. No one would have.
Well, I feel like a lot of the conservative crybaby hype makes them get more attention. They're probably playing on that as well. I feel like some things that people are doing nowadays are to encourage outrage, which is something I think is a little crazy. I think nowadays part of it is to encourage an outrage intentionally, where you're like, oh, let's make this character black or this character white. And I'm not saying that it's bad to do these things necessarily, but it feels like, and maybe I'm just wrong, but it feels like that could be it, or maybe conservatives have nothing to fucking talk about, and so that's why they complain about shit. But I feel like maybe there's a level of truth to that.
Cared, but they're so interested in virtue signaling. They're so interested in cramming down on you their version of what the world should be that they are destroying their own IP in the process. So good for them.
Okay.
All right.
All right.
I suppose in a weird way, they're putting their money where their mouth is.
Wrap it up,
All right,
buddy.
guys, the rest of the show.
Wrap it up, buddy. I want to watch this.
Well, joining me is Dylan Posel, who played
It's Piers Morgan doing something about it.
Hornswoggle, the leprechaun in WWE between
Which was an interesting
2006
role.
and 2016, and by the podcaster and commentator James Barr. All right, James, you've got no problem with what Disney are doing. You think this is progressive and inclusive, and all those moaning about it should shut up.
I think you should live in the 1930s, actually, Piers, because that's where you belong, really, listening to what you were just saying then. Also, I'm going to quote Warwick
I don't know what he was saying before that, but
Davis, because he said he finds it patronising when people are offended on his behalf. And you were just saying then. Also, I'm going to quote Warwick Davis, because he said he finds it patronising when people are offended on his behalf. And you've just spent a 5-minute monologue being offended on his behalf.
well, I mean, I imagine Hornswoggle is also there, and he's probably offended. So,
And I think that's ridiculous.
what is his name? I don't remember. Fuck. What is the guy's name? I don't want to call him Hornswoggle the whole time. Fuck. How do you spell Hornswoggle? What's his name? What's his real name? Dylan. Okay. Dylan.
We bring in Dylan because Dylan is also offended, and he happens to be a dwarf actor. Dylan, I've got to say, I was very curious when I saw what Peter Dinklage came out and said, because I did wonder who appointed him the head of the dwarf actor community. And it turns out
Me. I did it.
nobody did other than him. And the people who it seems to me have really suffered in all this are the 6 dwarf actors who would have expected to have roles in this remake in a massive Hollywood blockbuster, who are now not going to have that experience, all the money, all the fame that may have come with that. What is your response to that?
So it's not a progression at all to me. My issue with it is exactly what you said. there are actors, dwarf actors, that live that dream to be in a major motion picture such as this Disney remake. And now, because Peter Dinklage said what he said last year, now it's taken away. And it's taken.
He's right. I mean, it seems like all it was is Peter Dinklage complaining, and that's pretty much all that happened. And it's so interesting, isn't it? Because there isn't a super diverse cast of like little people or dwarf actors. They're saying dwarfs, I'll say dwarf actors or actresses that exist. And Peter Dinklage is the most popular, and he's an incredible actor, to be fair. But it's like, so now he's the only one that truly gets any real representation. So it's kind of unfortunate, and nobody listens to people who are less popular. And I think what happens is this. I think Peter Dinklage makes his perspective thinking that it's archaic to have dwarves in Snow White, which I think is stupid. I think it's okay to do it as long as you give respect to the actors and the roles themselves. I would say make some of them women, make some of them all people of color, do like a whole thing. Ben would still complain, by the way. Ben Shapiro and Piers Morgan would still have a reason to complain because they're not white anymore, but I wouldn't. And I'm all that really matters. But they could have done that. But Tyrion Lannister, he says it's bad. And so now people are like, oh, well, you have a little person saying something's bad, and I want to be respectful to that, so I'm going to shift. And then you have Disney saying, well, everybody's shifting. They're saying that this is bad, and we want to make money, so we have to change it. And then you have, it kind of spirals out of control from there. That's where I kind of feel like that's what happened with the situation. It's unfortunate.
Taken away because.
And then you have also another issue too, and we spoke about this a little before. Excuse me for yawning, but is that you have there's a weakness in the way that Disney has engaged in this situation. There's a difference between hearing information and parsing through that information and making an informed, reasonable, intelligent decision based on that information versus effectively, to some extent, bowing to what people are telling you or saying to you. There's a fundamental difference between those two things. And if you hear somebody give you information saying like, hey, I think that the roles of the dwarves are archaic in some capacity, parsing through that information and making an informed decision to be more reasonable and intelligent and respectful, that makes sense. And I feel like I've represented that decently. But to just flip instantaneously, listen to whatever people are saying and make no real effort to, that I think is what's happening here. And that's why people are looking at Disney as like weak. I'll be sure to tell them when I go to Disney with my wife. I'll say, you guys did a bad thing while I ride the Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs mine train at Magic Kingdom. It's not a bad ride.
Of quote unquote progression and all that. And it's not right, because these are roles made for actors of my stature, roles that aren't ever really given.
True.
I can't go out for the Harrison Ford or the George Clooney roles because that's not for me. These dwarf roles are for people of my stature.
Right.
And now it's
do I think that Disney came up short here? Yeah, I think they came up short here. Yeah, thank you so much for the 7-month small gut, Jado dog. There should be more gut representation, Disney. I agree with that.
Taken away. I don't feel that's right. And not only that, but now think about the additional stunt actors or body doubles or that. Now
True,
you're talking
actually.
multiple
Didn't even think about
actors
that.
of my stature that don't get these
Do your own stunts, pussy.
major roles. And why? What's the reasoning? Because we're supposed to be progressive and we're supposed to just not view them as that.
Well, the
these
irony.
were heroes.
The
all
irony.
of these dwarves, all of these dwarves
Let him speak, Piers!
took care of Snow White.
Right.
They all had characteristics, separate characteristics. They weren't these cave-dwelling monsters that people speak of. They all had 7 different characteristics for 7 different actors from my community, and I don't feel it's right that got taken away
completely
from us.
and utterly agree with you. And the irony is that they
Sorry to cut you off short, Hornswoggle. Sorry. Dylan.
profess, these progressives, to want to do this to protect you.
You know what I think is interesting? I feel like his name is Daryl, right? I want to make sure. I'm so bad. Yeah, Dylan. So I feel like Dylan is very true and honest, and he's very meaningful in what he's saying. I feel like Piers was going to go anti-woke regardless. And I feel like whoever this fucking person is, I don't even know, we can never tell anymore. They were always going to be like pro-woke, you know what I mean? And it muddies the waters when you have people who are like anti-woke and pro-woke. Because there's nothing intelligent about either their perspective. It's going to be like, it's just, it's one of those things where it's like a broken clock is right twice a day kind of a thing for both of them. They don't This is like such a fundamental problem that people have, is that they don't like look at information and form an opinion. They have an opinion and they look for information to justify that opinion, if that makes sense. So I feel like that's a big part of it as well.
Right, they protect dwarf actors from being, somehow smeared, but you don't feel that way at all.
Look what they did to The Hobbit. They didn't have dwarf actors. Nobody complained about that, though. Isn't that interesting? Nobody complained about that one. You didn't see anybody being pro or anti-woke at that point. But.
Peter Dinklage spoke up about this, and that was my issue. He had in the past no issue cashing checks that were made for dwarf roles like Elf and all of that. Yeah,
True.
He blew away the barriers when he did his roles that weren't necessarily made for a dwarf. But the Elf role was made for a dwarf. That check cleared just fine. So now that he's gone and done that, the progression of dwarf actors, it doesn't sit right with me.
Yeah, no, it makes sense what he's saying. It seems like Peter Dinklage cashed in, and now he could just say whatever he wants because he's protected.
That this guy who is exactly what you said, what gave him the voice for all of our community?
Yeah,
Why? I was
honest, I think
a complete hypocrite. Let me bring James back in. So
When
James,
Piers Morgan is agreeing with you, I think you need to be concerned. I'll say
so you're telling a dwarf actor what he should
But
feel.
definitely
Having
not.
hang on.
And
Having,
actually what I
having
would say-
literally just lectured me
What I would
about
say-
speaking for someone in the dwarf community, Warwick Davis, you now accuse a dwarf actor.
I'm not. No, it's not what I said. I said that if you're siding with anyone, you've got to worry.
Right.
What I'd like to say actually is that I kind of mostly agree with what you're
No,
saying.
no.
And
Now sir, that's just taking a pot shot there.
No,
by saying,
yeah, it
Piers
is absolutely
Morgan
taking a pot
agrees with
shot.
me.
He is right about that. If you're just saying, oh, well, you're guilt by association is what he's going with there.
But I do agree with what you're saying. I completely agree with your point of view, and I think that's really important. But I can only speak from my experience, and as a gay man, I know that growing up, I witnessed gay people being villains in movies when I was
7 dwarves aren't villains.
and that I think stereotypes
What is his point here?
are really important to
What stereotype
smash.
do you think
And
they
actually,
represent?
in the universe of Snow White, wouldn't it be
I
better
don't feel
if dwarves are...
this is.
Well, I want to hear the guy speak, but yes, my question is, what stereo? I want to hear him finish the thought, and Piers needs to let a guest talk. Yeah.
This isn't a part of this about the stereotype.
Right.
This is about roles that were made for people such of my stature that don't have the chance to go out for other roles normally.
But you, James,
So why are we
you want to
taking-
stop Dylan
I am
getting
not,
a role in a Hollywood
Piers,
film.
I'm not going to get into an attack on a dwarf.
You don't want a dwarf actor to
No,
land
I
a
do.
role
I do,
playing
actually.
a dwarf part.
Listen, a
Why?
dwarf can play a dwarf part, but I think it's important to change narratives that
I think a dwarf probably should play a dwarf part. If it's a gay actor, people get criticism all the time. Where like trans women should play trans women actors. You get my point, right? Well, I tend to agree. Generally speaking, it makes sense. You should have a gay man play a gay guy. I get it. So why not have a dwarf actor play a dwarf character?
that don't fit in today's society, and really, it
Which
might
is
be
that
better.
narrative?
It might be better
What's the-
if dwarves
sir-
just exist
sir,
in
pardon
normal
me.
roles everywhere
What's-
because they do exist.
What was
in
so
real
bad
life.
about the way dwarves were depicted in Snow White? Have I missed something?
Well, listen, I'm not here to talk about.
That's what I'm kind of wondering.
Well,
I
as
don't
well.
tell us.
represent Disney, but I'm just.
But no, but that's the question. What is so bad about the representation of dwarves in the thing? Because I heard the same thing, and now I don't see it. What's so bad? That they live together in a hole? Make their house nicer. Is it because they're not diverse enough? Make them more diverse little people. Is it, what is it? What is this? Like, if there's a problem with a particular stereotype for dwarves, I'm open ears. I have big ears. I'm all ears, literally. Now that I pointed that out, people will probably notice that more. I'm here to listen, but you could just change that instead of making them not dwarf. Because it sounds like you have a problem with seeing dwarfs. Like, if there's a problem, put them up in a luxury hotel. I don't give a fuck. Do something. You know what I mean? Like, what's the criticism? The only criticism I saw is that they had a house that was large enough for what would you say, a regular sized person? I don't know. That was the problem. That the house should have been fitted for which makes sense to me, I guess. I mean, I feel like it's kind of a pedantic criticism, but I guess in Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, they had a house that was too big for them. It would have made sense for them to have a smaller. I don't know. Like, what's the real criticism here? What?
Just saying, I think I see their point of view.
What's their point
What's
of
the
view?
point of
so
view?
bad
Yeah.
about the depiction of the dwarf?
Why are you
What's the
so
point of view?
upset about a movie changing with the times?
Oh damn! This guy came on with no information. Like, if you think Piers Morgan is so bad, and admittedly he's kind of a fucking idiot at times, but then why would you come on without being prepared to push your perspective? Because you not being able to give push. I mean, that's why he's on there, because he's a fucking moron, right? Piers has this guy on here because he's an idiot. Like, this is very intentional. Usually you'll have like fucking morons come on your show. pundits like of an opposing perspective that are really stupid. Everybody does this, like Fox News, CNN, Piers Morgan. Because if you have a fucking moron on your show that can't push back against what you're saying, you look like you got the win. So this guy, I hope he understands that he's there because he's a fucking idiot. Like, that's just a fact. I don't know what else to tell him. That's literally a fact. So
moving forward,
because I think that honestly, with great respect,
there is real news we could be discussing.
No, but this is real news if you're a dwarf actor who are now out of work because of virtue signaling idiots.
But you're
everything has to be rewritten
you are just
to be
using Dylan
inclusive.
as a cheap
when in
shot.
fact, it's not inclusive at all.
No, you're using Dylan as a cheap shot to attack a wokey.
I don't think Dylan feels I'm using him as a cheap shot. And what I would say about the wokey thing is this: I have spent the last year listening to people tell me only gay actors should play gay parts. Only Welsh actors, and Michael Sheen, should play
I don't know what the fuck that means.
Welsh characters. And
no, that's like a rate. Whatever. What is a Welsh? Gross.
so on and so on and so on. But the moment we have dwarf roles, which are the most famous dwarf roles in Hollywood history, then the only people apparently who can't play them are dwarf actors.
Dwarf
and
roles.
I see there
It's a cartoon,
stinking
Piers.
woke.
Wait, it's a cartoon. Yeah, it's a cartoon with dwarf actors. It's like roles for what the hell is he talking about?
Hypocrisy.
It has not changed. It was a cartoon. Those weren't actually dwarfs in the movie. They were drawn, okay? So firstly...
They were drawn as dwarfs.
No, that is...
But it's a
literally-
story about dwarves.
Dwarfs.
Well, they shouldn't be called that.
This guy's name look like it says Dumpy. That's what they should have made one of the dwarves have a big dumpy, you know? Then they can make him twerk.
They should be called...
They shouldn't be called dwarfs.
No, they should be called...
It is interesting though that the dwarves had a bed big enough for her to lay in it.
No, that is...
But it's a
literally-
story about dwarves.
Or did they all sleep in the same bed? Was that it? I don't remember.
Dwarfs.
Well, they
It's a
shouldn't be
story
called that.
about
They should be
dwarves.
called...
They shouldn't be called dwarfs.
No, they should be called people with
They shouldn't be
dwarfism.
called-
What's wrong with...
They shouldn't be called
We've gone too far with people with dwarfism. Oh, come on, bro. This guy has to be a fucking paid psyop. Are you kidding? First of all, I understand person first language. You don't call somebody with autism an autistic, right? You say a person with autism. And the reason is like you want to do person first. So this is a person that has autism, but they are a person first. Same thing when they say like person of color, they are a person first, and their color comes second. That's the idea. I guess fundamentally you could argue be a person with dwarfism, but I mean it seems like the dwarf or little person community has told us that they feel respected being called either little people or dwarves. They don't need to be called, people of little or anything. You know what I mean? Part of it is person first language. Part of it's just respect. That's why it's cool if we call somebody like a white person or a black person or a Hispanic person instead of a person of white or a person of black or a person of Hispanic, because it's generally seen as not disrespectful. But okay.
Nothing, but that's not the correct
That's the
term.
story.
Dylan,
The story
apparently
is literally
you're not
Snow
allowed to
White
call
and the
yourself
Seven
Call
Dwarfs.
himself whatever.
Apparently, Dylan, you're not allowed to call yourself dwarfs, apparently.
I would love to hear, what should I call myself, sir?
I think you should call yourself whatever you feel comfortable with, but as a person...
He calls himself a
dwarf.
dwarf.
That's
A
great.
dwarf.
Good
Yeah.
for you. I'm happy.
So
Yeah, so like that's his pronouns basically. So respect that label.
now, sir, let me pause that. So it shouldn't be called Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. It should
Listen,
just be
I
called
do not want to
Snow
get
White.
cancelled
So are
because
you
I
saying-
think your point of view is more important than mine right now. But what I'm annoyed about is Piers trying to take a cheap shot at someone that believes in society moving forward.
Yeah.
This guy's super like Piers is an idiot, but this guy here on the right is super condescending. Like holy fuck.
I'm actually,
Because really, if we
I'm
were
actually
to-
exposing the hypocrisy
It's
of the
not-
woke mentality of only gay people can play gay parts, only trans actors can play trans parts, and so on and so on and so on.
I think we want to get to a place where
right to the
everyone
point,
can play
Snow
every
White and the
role.
Seven Dwarfs has to be cancelled because you're not allowed to have dwarf
You
actors.
should be happy, Piers, because it means that now you can play your dream role of Grumpy.
I would love to play Grumpy. I loved all the dwarves in that movie. They were great.
I guess he really had that one ready to go. Huh?
Let me ask
Now
you
you're
guys.
being a hypocrite.
Guys,
You'd love to play Grumpy, but you're taking a role away from a dwarf
The issue
actor.
at hand.
No, I would play a fully grown Grump quite
by
happily.
taking away a role from a
Let me ask you, Dylan, about the Hugh
grown
Grant
Grump.
playing an Oompa Loompa, because again, it seems to me we've got a clip of him playing an Oompa Loompa. Let's have a look at this.
You're the funny little man who's been following me.
I will have you know that I am a perfectly respectable size for an Oompa Loompa.
An Uber what now?
Allow me to refresh your memory.
Oh, I don't think I want to hear that.
Too late. I've started dancing now. Once we've started, we can't stop.
So you're the funny little man who's been following me.
Okay. Yeah. Oh fuck. What the fuck? What did we just watch? Okay, so I guess I haven't really sat and thought about this for a minute. First of all, why'd they make a new Willy Wonka? I would generally say, upon first impression, a couple of things. One, they didn't eradicate the dwarf role in the movie. They didn't just remove the role in the movie. right? And so there's one there. Now you'd obviously argue that a little person should play him. You might be right. It seems like regardless of who played this role, though, based on the actual size of this Oompa Loompa, they were never going to like look like a proportionate person or person of dwarfism either. Since they did like a lot of CGI superimposing, and also Hugh Grant had sex with a prostitute that was uglier than his wife at the time. People always forget about that. But also, he's like a good actor, and I believe in conceding some roles if the actor's like really good. Like, I would let Samuel L. Jackson play anything, even a white slave master, because she's just so good. I'm gonna show you who he cheated on. He was, I think it was Elizabeth Hurley he was married to. A fucking crazy dude. That's why, not to be sexist, but holy shit. And like this girl that he cheated with, she's alright, but bro, you cheat on that? And but the implication of what I'm saying is that if she was ugly, it would be okay to cheat, which is not true. But I'm just saying, Jesus. I'm not saying to cancel him or anything. I'm just saying people forgot about that shit. It was fucking wild.
Now they use CGI there, Dylan, to effectively make him into an Oompa Loompa dwarf.
So now,
what do you feel about that?
Yes, sir. So now we're not only using CGI and spending extra money and funding for these movies when we could just cast dwarves in that role. Whether it be one dwarf or multiple, like they have been in the past. Now you're taking at least one role away or multiple roles away for Oompa Loompa characters. That's what they were in the past. And why, again, I go back to my stance.
I would say that like the difference between the dwarves and the Oompa Loompa is that Oompa Loompas aren't like inherently dwarves, right? They're Oompa Loompas. They're a different entity. Whereas the dwarves from Snow White are quite literally dwarves, right?
On these roles in Hollywood in general are very hard for people of my community to get besides the elf. And
you guys ever think about 3 of you in a trench coat? Maybe you can get, fuck. Sorry. I'm so sorry. That's just wrong. But maybe you guys could play one person and then that's terrible. I'm so sorry. Remove that from this. Edit that out.
And the leprechaun and this and
Edit
that.
that out.
So why are they being taken from my community? That's my issue here.
Well,
It's
you know
not
why? You know
anything
why,
about the
Dylan?
stereotypes
You know why?
or
Because
anything.
people like James here, they think it's progressive and inclusive.
No,
when in
see,
fact it's regressive.
those are not my words,
It's
actually.
regressive
Piers,
and exclusive.
I don't, your
don't-
words.
Piers,
Damn.
Dylan?
Piers, I will agree with the mindset of it's not right. I don't know. James seems to be in partial agreement with me on the dwarf actors and the roles with that these should be, but I don't. On the other stuff, I can't speak on that. Obviously, I'm focused fully on the dwarf community really losing roles in these films.
Yeah, I think James
And
started-
with
James
all the
started-
SAG strikes, with all the writer strikes.
Yeah.
And
Well,
the
this-
actor
I
strikes,
do agree with you,
it's
and I
important-
think all I'm trying to say is that I think it's a nuanced conversation, and there's a few different points.
Wait, but you're here to have it, no? Well, you're here to be a performative punching bag, but you are still poorly representing your side. I can't think of a single reasonable perspective against Dylan here. Like he's solid. He's convinced me.
To view that are valid, and ultimately, in my experience as a gay man, the reason we're upset about gay
My experience as a gay man.
people not getting gay roles in movies is because we're not getting straight roles as well, and until we are, it's unfair that those roles are taken away from us. So
Dwarves aren't getting fucking regular. What do you call me? They're not getting me-sized roles either. What the fuck? That argument doesn't make any sense.
in that respect,
What's that
And
got to do with
that's-
dwarf actors? Because
and
they
that's
can't play.
something-
They can't play
Well,
regular sized
I
parts.
think Peter Dinklage's original point is that he would like to see more dwarves in films in general, not just playing
I didn't hear him say that.
dwarves.
That
in
wasn't what
general,
he said.
literally, I should.
Okay.
A person of my stature should be able to go out for the same as a 6'5", 200-pound human. But it's just not that way.
Sounds like a skinny guy.
And I'm okay with that. In reality, I'm okay with that. It's understandable to me. But when it's these roles that are made for people of my stature,
Yes.
that's where I have the issue.
Yes, I'm gonna come.
You know what, Dylan? The movie, one of the great movies of all time, is called Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. If dwarf actors in Hollywood are not picked to play those roles, I don't know what roles you're supposed to be playing. It's unbelievably
I have,
patronising. They've done this under the banner of so-called progression.
Based, guys. Very based.
And it's not, again, like I said, these dwarves in that movie or in this story aren't viewed
Yes.
poorly, I don't believe. They're all separate characters that are actually heroes for this lady.
Yes.
And they take care and they take this lady in.
They save
so
her.
they're viewed so well.
I mean, if you think about it, it's a bunch of 7 men engaging in a traditional female role of caretaking, and so it's actually a very progressive movie if you think about it. Like how I woke it up a little. I woke that up a little bit.
To society.
They saved the woman.
Now
they're hardworking. They're wealthy. They are kind. They are generous-hearted. It's hard to think of a more positive narrative about any people at all.
Well, let's just go back to 1930s, Piers. I think you'd be happy.
You know what, James?
Blackface would exist.
No, it's not blackface.
James,
it's not
James,
blackface.
that's
And what you're now doing.
There's no way this is a regular person. This guy's an AI. Holy fuck.
Because you know you've lost the argument.
No, there's no argument.
And you know you've been
You're
embarrassed by the argument.
Not embarrassed.
You are
James, you just said
argument that doesn't exist.
Hold on, guys.
We agree with each other.
Please.
All right. You know what? You do agree.
You think that like after the show, Piers and this guy get together and they have like a coffee and they're like, "Good job, acting like a fucking moron today." He's like, "No problem. I'm here to be a punching bag." Like, you know.
With him now, because you realise the futility of your argument.
James, you can't go, oh, you got to go back to 1930s. No, James, if you agree with what I'm saying, you
I
can't
agree with what you're saying. I
Pierce's
don't agree
case
with
and
anything
say,
that Piers.
Yeah, here's the thing, Dylan. Just to be clear.
He literally just said what I said, James.
Dylan, just to be clear, he doesn't agree when I say it, but when you say it, he agrees.
Because you're not
and
a dwarf.
That right now, I'm not a dwarf, no. But that right there is the hypocrisy of the woke brigade. Dylan,
Okay, so let me just
I'm a dwarf in World of Warcraft.
say, Dylan, I've got to let go,
Pierce, real
unfortunately.
quickly, please. Pierce, quickly.
Final word, Dylan.
Pierce, James, let me ask you this. So if a
James, let me ask you this. I'm sorry, little kids. I'm gonna kill a clown today. Bullets are gonna spray. I'm from Brooklyn. That's all right. Imagine he threw that one out there.
writer writes a piece on what I'm saying, is it wrong of them? Because essentially, that's the same as the words coming out of my mouth.
What? Yeah. But you're not saying that I am a woke hypocrite, and Piers is, and that's what I disagree with.
No.
Because I'm absolutely not.
Ooh, I pooped my pants. So it sounds like basically what you're saying is that you're weaponizing this issue to disagree with Piers Morgan. So it's just the same way Piers is weaponizing this issue to disagree with like woke people, right? Nobody actually cares about Dylan, unfortunately, in this situation. I do, Dylan, but.
So when I'm saying that I disagree with Piers, it's nothing to do with your...
We're going to leave it there. Just to be clear, Dylan, he disagrees with what I say, but when you say exactly the same thing, he completely agrees with it.
You're
and that
so annoying.
is James Barr, right to a T. Dylan,
nonsense.
Fantastic having you on Piers Morgan Uncensored. You did such a brilliant job in highlighting why this is so ridiculous. Shame on Disney, and I hope you get another brilliant role very soon. I really do.
Well, I hope so too.
What about fat rolls? I think Tyra Banks should just dress up in a fat suit for all fat rolls.
That this really kind of resounds with how I feel.
Yeah.
And I don't speak for the whole dwarf culture and community, but this is literally
Piers
how I
does.
feel.
Piers Morgan speaks to the entire
Dylan,
dwarf community.
I've got to leave it there, Dylan.
He speaks
Thank
for
you.
all of you.
Thank you,
So
Dylan, for joining me. James,
that's helpful, I think.
Thank you for joining me because
You're so welcome.
you came on and you beautifully highlighted the shocking
hypocrisy
hypocrisy
of woke culture.
of your culture.
Absolutely.
Okay, interesting video.